welcome back to my garden, a very foggy garden today, and welcome back to day 24 at my Holidays in the Garden series. I am super excited about this video today because I had a little bit of help with the filming today from my friends across social media. So my plan for today was to share my top garden performers with you all. What plants did really well for me in 2022, even surprisingly well. But then I was thinking, you know, I live in zone 9B, and I know not all of you live in zone 9B. So wouldn't it be helpful if we could hear from all the gardeners across social media to hear what plants did really well for them in their gardens this past year? So what I did is I asked a bunch of my friends, whether it be on YouTube or Instagram or TikTok, if they could contribute to this video and share with us what plants performed really well for them in 2022, and they agreed. And so I just have to send a big thank you out to all the gardeners that contributed to this video. I appreciate it so much. And I want you all to know that I will be linking all of their information in the description down below. So right under this video, there's a video description. You just click the show more button and that will bring up a list of all the gardeners. I will list them based on their zones so that you know who you can click on, who would be pertinent to your zone. I do have to tell you though, I am in zone 9B and I watch every single one of these gardeners, whether on YouTube, Instagram, or TikTok, and all of them have very helpful information. So if you don't have a lot to do this winter, go ahead and binge watch their videos. It is helpful. Okay, so before I get to the videos of my friends where they're talking about their favorite garden performers, I wanted to tell you all two of my favorite garden performers this year. And the first one is actually right here in my front swoop. I planted it all over my daffodil bulbs, and that is Proven Winners Snow Princess Alyssum, Sweet Alyssum / Lobularia hybrid. It is an amazing plant, you guys. So I am in zone 9B and we definitely have heat. So Lobularia or Sweet Alyssum sometimes doesn't last very long into the spring or summer for us, but this plant lasted such a long time for me. I planted this plant along with Super Tunia Vista Jazzberry and Sweetheart Lime, Sweet Caroline, Sweet Potato Vine in my front swoop. And I thought the Sweet Alyssum was just gonna go away like, I don't know, maybe the end of May or something. It held its own almost all year long. It wasn't until our heat wave in August, where we had like 10 days of above 110 degrees, that it kind of faded back, and I actually thought it died. I actually thought, okay, well that's it for that plant, it's finished, you know, it's an annual and it's done, it burnt off. As soon as it cooled back down, it came right back. And so had I not pulled it out to plant all my daffodils, I probably would still have it in my front swoop here right now. And that is actually why I planted it behind me right now. I just planted these a couple weeks ago, so they're still filling in, but I'm really excited for the show this upcoming winter. Snow Princess Lobularia is hardy zones 9 to 11. So it is hardy for me. It's going to be happy in the spot, and I'm totally going to enjoy it. The other thing I do want to say about the Snow Princess Lobularia is that it gets to about 4 feet wide. The spread is about 4 feet. So that's one plant, one 4-inch pot that can cover 4 feet. I mean, that's Super Tunia bubblegum size right there. So I actually have big plans for this plant this upcoming season to cover a lot of my my ground area, and just to cover it with blooms instead of just having mulch or just nothing there. So I really do love this plant. Even in our heat in zone 9B, it did really well. The second plant I wanted to talk to you all about is kind of a generic plant. And I feel kind of bad saying this, but we call it a parking lot plant. And that is a plant that landscapers or gardeners or developers will plant in a parking lot because they're so easy to take care of and they know that they're going to do absolutely fine in our climate. So this plant is one of our parking lot plants that we see all the time. It's along with lantana and daylilies, and that is an iceberg rose. I was kind of like poo-pooing an iceberg rose for years because I thought, oh, they have them in the parking lots. Why would I have that in my garden? Well, now that I have one in my garden, I know why they put them in parking lots, because they thrive in our area. It's a Floribunda rose. It gets about 4 feet tall and 3 feet wide. It's hardy zones 5 through 11. It is just an absolute workhorse. I planted it right over here about halfway through the year, and it has just been beautiful since day one. And I cannot wait for next season once it gets a little bit bigger and I have time to like prune it back and really develop this rose. It's a classic for a reason. And so I really am falling in love. I fell in love with iceberg roses here in Zone 9B this past season. All right, so that's enough about my garden performers. Let's start hearing from all the other gardeners and hear what they think were the top performers in their gardens this past year. We're gonna start at the lowest zone. We have Mya Simply Bloom in Zone 3, if you guys can believe it, Zone 3. And then we'll just work all the way up until we get back to Zone 9B. So I hope you enjoy it.
Hi guys, I'm Mya from Simply Bloom. I live in northern Minnesota, Zone 3. It is beautiful out today. It is only about 1 degree Fahrenheit. I am thankful it is above 0 degrees right now because next week we are not supposed to get above 0. It's going to be around 10 below during the day, 20 below at nighttime. So again, I am thankful it is above 0 degrees. So I want to talk about a hydrangea plant. I really want to talk about the Quick Fire Panicle Hydrangea from Proven Winners. It is an absolute must if you have the room. It is zone 3 through 8. It does get about 6 to 8 feet tall and 6 to 8 feet wide, so it is kind of a bigger one. But what I love about it is it starts blooming up to a month before any of the other hydrangeas. So I love it. You get earlier blooms, tons of blooms. The whole plant is just covered in blooms, and it starts this really beautiful white color, and then it ages to, it kind of turns to a soft pink, and then kind of a rosy red near the end of the season. It is a lace top, so it attracts all the pollinators. There's always pollinators all over it. I love it because I use it for cut flower arrangements. They look great fresh or dried, and it just adds that perfect kind of textural element that everyone's looking for in their landscape in an arrangement. I love it. It does bloom on new wood. You do not have to deadhead this hydrangea to get new blooms, so that's great. One less thing you have to do in the garden. Another great thing I love about this hydrangea is the foliage. So during the spring and summer months, it has this beautiful green foliage that the flowers just pop up against. But then in the fall months, the foliage turns this beautiful kind of a dark reddish color. So you get that fall interest. And then in the winter time, I love it because the blooms turn this beautiful golden color. It kind of looks like that they've been spray painted with gold, but that's just their color. So I love fresh snowfall on the blooms, and it's just this beautiful contrast with the white snow and the gold. So that is my favorite plant for right now, the Quick Fire Proven Winners hydrangea. I definitely recommend getting those if you have the room in your garden. Like I said, they're kind of on the big side, but I think they are well worth finding a spot to place these. So that is it. I hope you have a great day. Bye. It's cold.
Hey gorgeous, Roxana here with Soil and Margaritas. For my garden that is located in central Indiana in Zone 5, one of my best performers hands down for 2022 was coleus. I feel like a lot of people don't think about coleus as one of those plants that you gotta have in your garden. For me personally, I love coleus. I grow them both in containers and in the ground. This year I grew 3 different varieties: Mighty Mosaic, Black Dragon, and Chocolate Mint, and I love them. They did amazing. I don't really have a lot of options in the spring for buying coleus, so I grew them from seed. And all throughout the season, they perform excellent. If you are not growing coleus in your garden, you're missing out.
My name is Morgan Amos. I garden in Central Wyoming, Zone 5A. And 2 of my top performing plants for 2022 are Rocky Mountain Blue Penstemon and Summerific Hardy Hibiscus. Rocky Mountain Blue Penstemon is a true native to the Intermountain West where I live. This is a relatively cheap and easy plant to start from seed. 2022 was the first year this perennial flowered in my garden, and in early summer it sent up loads of these flower stalks that were covered in perfectly blue-violet beard tongue type flowers that attracted lots of little pollinators and bumblebees. Summerific hardy hibiscus has been a mainstay in my garden for a few years now. This is a perennial that grows with a shrub-like habit, and in late summer, when they start their display of blooms, you get to see loads of flowers that are nearly as big as your head and just beautiful. So those are two of my top performing plants from 2022, Rocky Mountain Blue Penstemon and Summerific Hardy Hibiscus.
Hi folks, it's Eric and Christopher from Grow For Me 5B on Instagram. One of our favorite shrubs this season has been the Firelight Tidbit Hydrangea. We love this shrub for its small, compact size and its abundance of blooms, blooming all season long. And then as the weather gets cooler, the blooms start to transition to a deep, rich pink. This shrub grows 2 to 3 feet tall and wide and prefers full sun to part sun. Another shrub we're loving this season is our David Austin Vanessa Bell Rose. This rose blooms non-stop from late spring to the fall, has an amazing, strong tea fragrance, and beautiful, creamy yellow flowers. Thanks, Janie, for asking us to share a couple of our favorite plants this season. Happy holidays!
Hey Janie, Heather from Here She Grows. I'm in the southwest suburbs of Chicago, Zone 5B. Very heavy, dense clay soil, very alkaline soil. And getting things to establish here is trial and error. I mean, I'm kind of a neglectful gardener, so getting things to take, when something takes, I tend to run with it. So this whole area, you can't tell right now, is Dolce Wild Berry Heuchera. It's one of my favorites. I really focus on foliage. Foliage is super important because after the flowers are gone, you really need some foliage in those spaces to carry it through. Dolce Wild Berry Heuchera has it. Beautiful purple leaf. Let me bring it closer. That's the underside. That's the front of it. And it's darker now because it's winter time, but in the summertime, it is so vibrant and it's so beautiful. It partners well with so many other plants. So definitely Heuchera, Dolce Wild Berry Heuchera. Hardy to zone 4, about 12 inches tall, 18 inches wide. And I planted in multiples here, so I think I've got 7 plants here and I keep dividing. So great plant, very easy to work with. Sun or shade, it gets about part sun here. It can take more sun if you water it more frequently. I tend not to do that, so it's got to make it on its own, and it does great here. And since dry shade is so challenging, I wanted to share with you one of my most favorite dry shade plants, and it can take some sun if you give it a little more water, but it's Aruncus, Chantilly Lace Aruncus, or goat's beard. This one is about 2.5 feet tall by 3 to 4 feet wide. They can get pretty big, but what's really nice about it is it looks similar to an astilbe. It's got the foliage of an astilbe, and if you know astilbe, you know they dry out fast. They can be really temperamental. I can't grow them here. I don't pay them enough attention to keep them alive. But Aruncus, or goat's beard, does so much better. I planted it, and it had established in a couple months. But what's cool about it, it's got the nice, delicate looking foliage, but it's anything but delicate. Put in zones 3 to 7. It can take shade or sun, it takes dry shade, and it develops the most beautiful little white flowers on it. And they're long and thin, so really pretty. They stay in color for a very long time. And even when they're finished flowering, you can leave them intact, and they've got really nice winter interest. So this is a new clump that I have here, so it's not completely established yet. And I expect these will get bigger. These are quite big plants, 3 to 4 feet wide, about 2.5 feet tall. I will be dividing these. I tend to plant a little close. I like instant gratification, but definitely Chantilly Lace Aruncus and Dolce Wild Berry Heuchera are excellent plants in my garden and very low maintenance. Janie, thanks for including me in your top plant picks video, and happy gardening, guys. We got many months ahead of us of winter, so plenty of time to plan, and I hope this helps you pick out some cool plants for your garden. Take it easy, guys.
Hey everyone, my name is Bethany at Chicago Gardener, and I am in zone 6A. I garden exclusively in containers on my rooftop deck, and I wanted to share a couple of my favorite performers for 2022. Now, my first one is a plant I always have to have in my garden, and that is the Supertunia Vista. Specifically, bubblegum is my favorite color, but I will get any Supertunia Vistas that I can find because they perform the best of any Supertunias I've ever had, and they're an easy way to add a lot of color to the garden. Now, I do always get budworms every year on them, but they're the only plant that I would put that much time into fighting off the budworms just to have them in my garden because I love them that much. And my second favorite performer is my giant Benary zinnias. So I start those from seeds, and those just produce like crazy, and they produce pretty early on in the season. I do start them inside to give them a little bit of a head start, but they produce like even into, I think, November. I still had some, but they are incredibly productive. They're essentially the reason why my home is filled with fresh bouquets of flowers throughout the entire garden season, because anytime you cut flowers off, new ones sprout out. It seems like the next day, probably the next couple days, but they're just the workhorses, I feel like, in my garden of cut flowers, just continually producing more and more. I like to do the mixed varieties, so I kind of get like a surprise of colors, but I am going to add more next year of the colors that I specifically really like from that mix. So those are my two favorites, and I will definitely plan to grow them in my garden every year.
Hey Janie, for everyone else, my name is Scott. I'm from northeastern Pennsylvania, or NEPA, which is zone 6A, right on the border of 6B, depending on the year. And my favorite flower is actually a tie between nasturtium and cosmos. They were some of the first flowers I ever grew from seed, and they were so easy, and it kind of really gave me that will to want to grow. And their leaf structure is so unique, aside from any other plant in the yard, pretty much. And then the fact that they're edible is a huge plus as well. Number two is snapdragons. I just became in love with snapdragons this year. I planted them out early spring. They lived throughout the year. They brought in tons of butterflies. And then in the fall and early winter, they still had some vigor to them, whereas everything else was kind of going to sleep. And then as a special mention, I have to say, I don't have any of this in my yard yet, but next year I'm adding a ton, is milkweed. I think everyone should look into milkweed that's native to your area and try to incorporate some into your landscape as much as you can. Thanks.
Thanks, Janie. Hi, my name is Steph from the YouTube channel Hooked and Rooted, and I live and garden in Massachusetts, which is the zone 6B. Today I'm going to share with you two plants that are great performers in my garden and that you might enjoy in yours.
The first one that I'm going to talk to you about is the candy corn spirea. I love this shrub in my garden for all of the variation in color that it offers. In the spring, when it first starts to leaf out, it is a bright red. The leaves are bright red, and then they transition to a bright orange. And as the season progresses, it turns to this beautiful yellow and chartreuse green before sending out these clusters of hot pink flowers in late spring. This is a deciduous shrub, which means that it loses its foliage in the winter. However, it offers so much beauty for at least 3 seasons, beginning in spring, summer, and in fall.
The double play candy corn spirea is a proven winner's color choice shrub, and you can see here in the card it has these beautiful colors, and this is the color of the blooms, this hot pink or fuchsia pink. And here are the specs on this shrub. They are hardy in USDA zones 4 through 7, or down to -30 degrees. They get to be 1.5 to 2 feet tall and wide. They have beautiful, colorful foliage. They are a petite shrub, so they would fit in multiple size landscapes, whether you have a large garden or small. They can be tucked anywhere. And they offer spring, summer, and fall interest.
Acorus ogon, or variegated sweet flag. This one here, while not technically a grass, has a grassy look and texture. Actually, this is a great dupe for the Hakanakloa, or the Japanese forest grass. So if you can't find any of that grass near you and you can find the sweet flag ogon, this would be a good option. And the great thing about this is that this is a problem solver grass. If you have an area that is very wet, this grass is excellent because it is a water-loving grass. It actually is grown in swamps, in ponds, and so forth. So this is a great option. The other great thing about this grass is that it is evergreen. So this stays like this throughout the winter. It loses a little bit of the yellowness, but it still stays and doesn't lose its foliage. It is pretty compact, coming in at only about 1 to 2 feet tall and wide. And this started off as one plant, and I've been dividing it, and now I'm up to 4 along the border of this bed. It is a part sun to full sun, and it doesn't burn, and this is a really pretty variegated green and yellow foliage.
Hey friends, it is Jenny with Gardening with Creekside. I am in North Carolina, a Zone 7B, and of course, like so many gardeners, I had some fantastic favorites from this past year. My favorite, I think, flowering annuals, really hard to decide, right? It had to be the new luscious lemon tart lantana that is going to be coming out next year from Proven Winners. It is a fantastic, beautiful yellow lantana, so be on the lookout for that. My favorite perennial, without a doubt, hands down, is going to be the brand new Summerific Lilac Crush. This is a gorgeous, pale purple, lavender, lilac colored perennial hibiscus. It was absolutely stunning and just such a fantastic performer for me. And then of course, hydrangeas. You got to have hydrangeas in your garden, right? Without a doubt, it was Little Lime Punch. I had multiple of these in my garden and they were just top performers. Beautiful creamy white flowers. For us in the South, they don't really turn a pink, but they were still gorgeous. Really, really beautiful, nice tight habit. Love those. So have fun in your garden, get out there, start planning for 2023 because it will be here before we know it. As always, thanks so much for Gardening with Creekside. See y'all next time. Bye friends.
Hi, I'm Amanda, the ever hopeful gardener, and that's me in my garden shed trying to figure out what I'm going to plant in next year's garden. And some of the top performers for me are plants that do double duty, like Zucchino rampicante, also known as tromboncino squash, which you can eat young like a summer squash or let it mature and it's like a winter squash. Plus, it's squash vine borer resistant. And loofah, because you can eat loofah when it's young, kind of like a zucchini, or you let it mature and then you have something like a sponge you can use in the bath, shower, or in the kitchen to wash dishes. The loofah sponges last on average 2 months when we use them in the kitchen sink, and then we can compost them afterwards.
Hi Janie, it's Kim here from North Carolina Zone 7B. I am so excited to share with you my 2022 top performers and favorite plants of the year. This is a plant that I have known and loved for a very long time, but this year I have really grown to appreciate it. And that plant is none other than the camellia, more specifically the Camellia sasanqua. The reason that I love it so much is because of the winter bloom, which this one has blooms on it right now. Here in North Carolina, we have drab and dreary landscapes in the wintertime. Sometimes we have snow, and being able to look out and have those pops of color is magnificent. The rich green foliage is beautiful year-round, so it's not a problem in the spring either. My most favorite is the Yuletide camellia, which is December blooming, and it's red with a yellow center, and it's perfect for Christmas time. It is so beautiful against the backdrop of, you know, really nothing in the landscape, and I just can't recommend it enough. My honorable mention would be a reblooming azalea. They bloom 3 times in the spring when all the other azaleas are blooming, and then they bloom again in the summer and then again in the fall. So it's almost like you have a continuous azalea bloom, whereas in the past we had a bloom and then that was it. The annual that stole my heart this year. I didn't know about it, but I actually learned it from you, Janie, and it is the Proven Winners Supertunia Vista, and for me it was the Jazzberry. I found it at Home Depot and I thought, you know what, why not give it a try? We cannot have petunias here in North Carolina. The humidity, they just cannot handle it. This one not only survived the humid nights, it thrived. And then it kept going, and here we are in the fall, and it's still blooming, and it's blooming all over itself. I cannot tell you how amazing this plant is. And so now we're at the end of December, and it's still green. There are no more blooms, but it's still green. It is such a magnificent plant. Janie, I want to thank you so much for allowing me to share with you and your viewers what my favorite top performers of Zone 7B are. And I want to thank you also for everything that you do. You are a part of my everyday. I wake up and I have my coffee and I watch your amazing channel. So I'm really excited to see everyone else's top choices and top performers. So I hope you guys all have a great day, and I will see you soon. Take care.
Hi guys, my name's Elisa and I live 1 hour north of Sydney in New South Wales, Australia. Where I live in New South Wales is a temperate climate, and the exact location of where I live is the equivalent to a 9B planting zone in the US. Janie has asked me to choose 2 of my favourite performers for 2022, and I chose one annual and one perennial. I'm standing beside my favorite annual of the year, and it is by far one of the best performers that I had. These are my sweet peas. So I'm just saving them. They're just coming to the end of their season, but I'm just saving them now for seeds for next year. I had so many different types of sweet peas this year, and they were fantastic. This one by far is one of my favorite varieties that I grew this year. All of these were grown from seed, and it's amazing to think that something so gorgeous can grow from such a tiny little seed. They're just stunning. That's why I wanted to save the seeds again this year. My favourite perennial for this year was Gardenia magnifica. I think that they are just such a stunning, beautiful, beautiful gardenia. They have handled our crazy weather that we have had this year in New South Wales, Australia. We've had flooding, and they have all handled it very, very well. And I actually have plans to put in a whole hedge of them. So I am so, so excited and looking forward to more gardenias in 2023. Thank you so much for asking me to be part of this video, Janie.
Hello, I'm Joshua.
Hi, and I'm Jose with Mr. Gardeners. Today we're in our backyard. We're located here in Tampa, Florida, growing zone 9B. And we just wanted to take a minute to share two of our favorite annuals that we put in the garden this year.
That's right. In fact, you may be able to see one of them directly behind us. This is the Coconut Appeal Thumbergia. It is a vine, as you can see. It is December 21st, and this is pretty much the show of the garden at the moment. It's full of blooms. It's continuing to grow, and it probably will continue to grow until we get our first frost. But we have 3 different bays. You can see probably 2 of them here that are planted up identically, and we have a trellis and security privacy screen that we put up here, and we decided to place a vine, and so each one of these got 1 vine.
And 1 is all we needed. As you can see, look at the size of that beautiful vine.
Absolutely. In fact, according to provenwinners.com, this plant can grow in either part sun to sun. It's estimated to get about 8 feet tall and 2 feet wide, even though you can clearly see this is more than 2 feet wide. It's fast growing, and it will flower up until the first frost. It does have a climbing habit, and it blooms year round.
The second plant that we really enjoyed this year was Supertunia Picasso in purple.
In fact, we really loved the chartreuse margins on the edge of the flower and the bright pop of color that it does add to the garden. And it actually, I would say it quickly is running up our list of our must-haves in the garden every year if we can get our hands on it.
For sure.
We hope you found these as beautiful as we do.
And a big thank you to Janie for putting together this amazing video.
All right, everyone, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. I want to thank all the gardeners who contributed to this video and took the time to film talking about their top performers this past year. I don't know about you, but I have a big list of plants that I want to try out in my garden next year. So just as a reminder, I am going to link all the information for the social media pages for all the gardeners that contributed to this video today. Check the description down below. Go ahead and click the show more button, and it'll bring up a big list of all the gardeners. I will list their zones and their names. There's YouTube accounts, Instagram accounts, and TikTok accounts. So I hope you all enjoyed this. I hope you all have a chance to get into your garden today, and I will see you all tomorrow for day 25 in my Holidays in the Garden series.